Good afternoon. We're continuing with the readings from Genesis 25, Psalm 25, the Gospel of Matthew 25. The descendants of Keturah. Abraham married another wife, whose name was Keturah, and she bore him Zimram, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan, and the descendants of Dedan were the Asherites, the Lechushim and the Laman. The descendants of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abida, and Eldah. All these were sons of Keturah. Abraham left all his possessions to Isaac. To the sons of his concubines, Abraham made grants during his lifetime, sending them away from his son Isaac eastward to the land of the east. The death of Abraham. The number of years Abraham lived was 175. When Abraham had breathed his last, dying at a happy ripe age, old and full of years, he was gathered to his people. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave at Macpelah facing Mamre, in the field of Ephron, the Hittite son of Zohar. This was the field that Abraham had bought from the Hittites, and Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried there. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac. Isaac settled near the well of the Lahe-Aroi. The descendants of Ishmael. These are the descendants of Ishmael, son of Abraham, by Hagar, Sarah's Egyptian slave girl. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael, by name and line. Ishmael's firstborn was Nebaioth, then Kedar, Adbeel, Midsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Timar, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names according to their settlements and encampments, 12 chiefs of as many tribes. The number of years Ishmael lived was 137. When he breathed his last and died, he was gathered to his people. He lived in the territory stretching from Havilah by Shur, just outside Egypt on the way to Assyria, and he held his own against all his kinsmen. The story of Isaac and Jacob. The birth of Esau and Jacob. This is the story of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Abraham fathered Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Paddan Aram, and sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to Yahweh on behalf of his wife, for she was barren. Yahweh heard his prayer, and his wife Rebekah conceived. But the children inside her struggled so much that she said, "If this is the way of it, why go on living?" So she went to consult Yahweh, and Yahweh said to her, "There are 2 nations in your womb. Your issue will be 2 rival peoples. One nation will have the mastery of the other, and the elder will serve the younger. When the time came for her confinement, there were indeed twins in her womb. The first to be born was red, altogether like a hairy cloak, so they named him Esau. Then his brother was born, with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old at the time of their birth. When the boys grew up, Esau became a skilled hunter, a man of the open country. Jacob, on the other hand, was a quiet man, staying at home among the tents. Isaac preferred Esau, for he had a taste for wild game, but Rebekah preferred Jacob. Esau gives up his birthright. Once, when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau returned from the countryside exhausted. Esau said to Jacob, "Give me a mouthful of that red stuff there, I'm exhausted." Hence the name given to him Edom. Jacob said, "First, give me your birthright in exchange." Esau said, "Here I am at death's door. What use is a birthright to me?" Then Jacob said, "First, give me your oath." He gave him his oath and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave him some bread and lentil stew. He ate, drank, got up, and went away. That was all Esau cared about, his birthright. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now going to continue reading from the Psalms. Psalm Prayer in Danger. Psalm 25. Adoration I offer Yahweh to you, my God, but in my trust in you do not put me to shame. Let not my enemies gloat over me. Calling to you, none shall ever be put to shame, but shame is theirs who groundlessly break faith. Direct me in your ways, Yahweh, and teach me your paths. Encourage me to walk in your truth, and teach me, since you are the God who saves me. For my hope is in you all day long. Such is your generosity, Yahweh. Goodness and faithful love have been yours forever. Yahweh, do not forget them. Hold not my youthful sins against me, but remember me as your faithful love dictates. Integrity and generosity are marks of Yahweh, for he brings sinners back to the path. Judiciously he guides the humble, instructing the poor in his way. Kindness unfailing and constancy mark all Yahweh's paths for those who keep his covenant and his decrees. Let my sin, great though it is, be forgiven, Yahweh, for the sake of your name. Men who respect Yahweh, what of them? He teaches them the way they must choose. Neighbours to happiness, will they live, and their children inherit the land? Only those who fear Yahweh have his secret and his covenant for their understanding. Permanently my eyes are on Yahweh, for he will free my tent, my feet from the snare. Quick, turn to me, pity me, alone and wretched as I am. Relieve the distress of my heart, bring me out of my constraint. Spare a glance for my misery and pain, take all my sins away. Take note how countless are my enemies, how violent their hatred for me. Unless you guard me and rescue me, I shall be put to shame, for you are my refuge. Virtue and integrity be my protection, for my hope, Yahweh, is in you. Ransom Israel, O God, from all its troubles. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. We're now going to continue reading from the Gospel of Matthew. The Gospel of Matthew, parable of the 10 wedding attendants. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25. Glory to you, O Lord. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 wedding attendants took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were sensible. The foolish ones, though they took their lamps, took no oil with them, whereas the sensible ones took flasks of oil as well as their lamps. The bridegroom was late, and they all grew drowsy and fell asleep. But at midnight there was a cry, "Look, the bridegroom! Go out to meet him!" Then all those wedding attendants woke up and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish ones said to the sensible ones, "Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." But they replied, "There may not be enough for us and for you. You had better go to those who sell it and buy some for yourselves." They had gone off to buy it when the bridegroom arrived. Those who were ready went in with him to the wedding hall, and the door was closed. The other attendants arrived later. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "In truth, I tell you, I do not know you. So stay awake, because you do not know either the day or the hour." The parable of the talents. It is like a man about to go abroad, who summoned his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to a third 1, each in proportion to his ability. Then he set out on his journey. The man who had received the 5 talents promptly went and traded with them and made 5 more. The man who had received 2 made 2 more in the same way. But the man who had received 1 went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Now a long time afterwards, the master of those servants came back and went through his accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more. "Sir," he said, "you entrusted me with 5 talents. Here are 5 more that I have made." His master said to him, "Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You have shown you are trustworthy in small things. I will trust you with greater. Come and join in your master's happiness." Next, the man with the 2 talents came forward. "Sir," he said, "you entrusted me with 2 talents. Here are 2 more that I have made." His master said to him, "Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You have shown you are trustworthy in small things. I will trust you with greater. Come and join in your master's happiness." Last came forward the man who had the single talent. "Sir," he said, "I had heard you were a hard man, reaping where you had not sown, and gathering where you had not scattered. So I was afraid, and I went off and hid your talent in the ground. Here it is. It was yours. You have it back." But his master answered him, "You wicked and lazy servant. So you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered? Well then, You should have deposited my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have got my money back with interest. So now take the talent from him and give it to the man who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will be given more, and he will have more than enough. But anyone who has not will be deprived even of what he has. As for this good-for-nothing servant, throw him into the darkness outside. There will be weeping and grinding of teeth. The Last Judgement. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, escorted by all the angels, then he will take his seat on his throne of glory. All nations will be assembled before him, and he will separate one from another as the shepherd separates sheep from goats. He will place the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, Come you whom my Father has blessed, take as your heritage the kingdom prepared for you since the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you made me welcome. Lacking clothes, and you clothed me. Sick, and you visited me. In prison, and you came to see me. Then the upright will say to him in reply, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and make you welcome, lacking clothes and clothe you? When did we find you sick or in prison and go to see you? And the king will answer, In truth, I tell you, insofar as you did this to one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did it to me. Then he will say to those on his left hand, Go away from me, with your curse upon you, to the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you never gave me food. I was thirsty, and you never gave me anything to drink. I was a stranger, and you never made me welcome. Lacking clothes, and you never clothed me. Sick and in prison, and you never visited me. Then it will be their turn to ask, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, a stranger or lacking clothes, sick or in prison, and did not come to your help? And then he will answer, In truth, I tell you, insofar as you neglected to do this to one of the least of these, you neglected to do it to me. And they will go away to eternal punishment, and the upright to eternal life. This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Thanks be to God.